All right, guys. Today we are doing defense. Yesterday we had Coach Hahn on helping us look at some of these offensive linemen we got, but today we're going to look at some of the defensive guys with Sam. Sam is our resident defensive guy, and I even got my Jair shirt just for this special occasion. So, Sam, thanks a lot for joining me, man.
Yeah, no problem. I really love some of the players we got in this draft class on the defense, and I'm looking forward to digging into them a little more.
Oh, I'm super excited. So, we're going to go through kind of like we did yesterday. We've got each of the three main prospects. We're going to take a quick glance at the seventh round guys and then kind of just do a little roundup or whatever. But Sam, if you want to get started, why don't we start off with our first pick, which is Quay Walker. Tell us what you like, what you love, and if there's anything bad, I guess you can talk about that. But there's probably not.
Sure. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so I can pull up some tape here, some clips.
We
So
like that.
what I really like about Quay is, well, there's a couple things. Obviously, his athleticism, his length, his size. Just he's able to stand up at the line of scrimmage, stand up against offensive linemen in the run game, and then the system he's coming from in the Georgia defense. They often played with similar philosophies to the Packers defense, kind of that light box, out gapped defense. Um, and then just his versatility. He can line up on the edge, he can blitz, he can play the run, he can cover. So I'm going to go through a couple clips here and try to showcase some of that ability. So this is kind of what I was referring to, where he's playing with some of the same principles that the Packers defense plays with. So what the Georgia defense is going to be doing is they're basically divided down the middle. On the left, they're out gapped, right? They've got this safety is going to spin down. They've got four guys because Jordan Davis is playing backside here. They've got four guys against four blockers, right? And so that the running back, he should be free if he gets free, or he should be able to run free if he gets past those blockers, kind of into the open field. But what Quay is going to do here is he's going to play a technique called stack, track, and fall back. So that's basically it's kind of like two gapping from line gapper or linebacker position. So I'll let this play a little bit here. What he's basically going to be doing is he's going to be pacing the back. So he's not shooting into a gap. He's not overcommitting. He's kind of following the running back, keeping eyes on him, so that if the running back cuts back, he can cut back. So you can kind of see him pause right here. He's looking to see if that running back's going to cut back, and so and seeing if he's going to have to play that backside gap. But the running back doesn't. And then once that running back commits, you can just see him trigger, just track that running back to the sideline and tackle him. And then this is another clip. Like I mentioned, he can line up on the edge, right? He can set the edge. He can pass rush even a little bit. Right here, he's going to just set the edge really well against the Tennessee tackle. You can kind of see him get his hands into the tackle's chest, get a great base. He's playing with really good pad level and leverage, and he just stands that tackle up so he can shed to either side if the running back comes his way. And then next clip here, you're going to see a little bit of some pass rush. So going against Michigan, he gets a really nice first step off the ball, and he just hits him with a chop on that outside hand, and then just leans around that corner. Now he does, I think, need to refine his technique a little bit here because he kind of steps outward a little bit. If he kept bending, that would probably be a straighter path to the quarterback, but he kind of does that little step out. But still, that's a really good rep from an inside linebacker, right? He's got like legitimate pass rush acumen. He can use some hand moves, that kind of thing. And then right here is just, I love seeing this guy engage guards. Like a lot of linebackers, I think, or some linebackers will just try to avoid guards, try to slip them because they can't take them on. He does not do that. He is, oh, sorry, did you say something?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. So he's just going to take this guard on. Right here, you can just see his hands. It's just popping them up high. Gets him extended and it's just ridiculous. Right, he's got that wide base. Gets his hand in good position, and he just lifts that offensive lineman off the ground. Just throws him off. It's crazy. And then a couple of clips here of his coverage ability. So right here, he's going to be essentially mugging the line of scrimmage, right? So it's obviously tougher for him to get back into deeper zones. But what he's going to do, I'm not sure exactly what the Georgia defense is playing here. I think that these two are manned up. This linebacker is going to take the running back, or the tight end. So he tries to flare out. This guy's going to drop down to cover this guy. These guys are covering these guys. And so he's basically a hole dropper because this guy's blitzing, right? So it's kind of like a cover 1, cover 3 type deal. One high principles essentially. But what he's going to do is he's going to drop back. He's going to locate that number 3 wide receiver right here, and he's going to see that wide receiver running it over. I just love to see. I mean, it's probably a combination of his processing ability, the Georgia coaching staff's ability to coach him up, and then obviously his ability to study film and that kind of thing. But he recognizes that over, drops back. It's just insane for a guy who's 6'4", 245 to drop back that fast
Right.
and be able to cover that route. Right, he passes off. He's in position to play that if the quarterback throws that ball, but it dumps it underneath and just comes up to try to help on the tackle. And the final clip from him here, um, he's going to bite a little bit on the play action right there, but he backpedals just really smoothly. And then I love seeing him read the quarterback, right? He's kind of sidestepping. He sees that quarterback looking at that middle route. They're running a dig right here. Sees the quarterback looking at that, and he just feels the route behind him and just kind of covers it. There's no room for the quarterback to fit that in. Right. I really like his processing ability and just his fluidity and coverage as well as his physicality and size in the run game. I just really think he's a complete package as a linebacker.
Yeah, he is a lot of fun to watch. I think the funniest thing about him is he covers a lot of ground, and I almost never see him run in a straight line. He's always strafing. Like even
Yeah,
that clip in coverage you showed, that was almost entirely backpedaling and then backpedal strafing, and he's still covering a massive amount of ground. So yeah,
yeah.
it's really impressive to see him move like that.
He's just a freak with his movement skills. I'm gonna move on to Devonte Wyatt real quick
Talk
here
about
if
Devonte
you're
Wyatt.
ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So again, this is another example of him kind of playing with similar principles as what you might see in the Packers defense. He's going to be playing primary gap to secondary gap against this zone run. So he engages that offensive lineman. He's got his hands across the front and on the back a little bit, so he's controlling that. So he's got his eyes on the front side gap, watching for the running back. All right, I think in this case it's actually the quarterback. No, it's the running back. They ran some zone read stuff, so I wasn't sure. But he sees that running back cut back, and he just disengages right away and just tackles him. I love that quick twitch ability for someone who's 300 pounds. That's really impressive.
Yeah, that was one of the things the Packers staff highlighted, I know, was his quick
Yeah,
twitch ability.
yeah, and then he's playing. He's got a ton of versatility as well. Like he and Quay have that in common. So he's going to be playing nose tackle right here, zero technique, which is classic in the Packers defense under Joe Barry. But he's going to playing a double team on this zone run. So he engages the first dude. He sees that second block coming. And he just leans into it, right? So they can't move up. They have to keep on him to stop him from disengaging and playing that running back. But what that does is it keeps Channing Tindall right over here clean to come play that run because he's kind of distracted by that jet motion a little bit. So he sees the run, comes back, and is able to make that tackle. But that's probably not happening if Wyatt's not there, right? Because the
Right.
center's probably able to move up, or I'm sorry, the left guard's able to, no, the right guard, left from the defensive perspective. The right guard, he's probably able to move up and close off that cutback lane or close off Tyndall and stop him from coming back to play that run. So that's another important thing, right? Keeping that second level clean, something the Packers ask their defensive linemen to do a lot. And then he's like he can play the run. He's also a legitimate pass rusher. He's super fun to watch. This clip has been going around a little bit on Twitter, but it's just super impressive. So I thought I'd include it. So he kind of false starts there. So he's at a disadvantage, right? He's not getting firing off the line as efficiently as you'd want to, but he engages that offensive lineman, just throws him aside, and just that speed. It's just crazy. That's like
Yeah.
Rashawn Gary speed, right? Like he's a blur.
Insane.
All right, here's another pass rush rep against Tennessee. So he's going against the left guard. Got that right this time. But he's just gonna get it, just a beautiful swipe in, just run free. It's super quick too, right? You just see that swipe and almost gets a sack. And then actually, it's Quay Walker coming up to make the tackle. But just that hand usage is just really impressive. Um, and then, all right, this final play here. This is actually the same play I showed where Quay's engaging the climbing offensive lineman right here. But I noticed that Devonte was actually manhandling his blocker as well. So he's going to be going against the right guard here. Just it's just ridiculous. Like that, that poor guard stands
Wow.
no chance. He can't block him.
Just throwing him around like a
I know, I
rag
know.
doll.
I love seeing that because he uses the offensive lineman to essentially
Right.
close that gap for the running back, right? And then the edge defender doesn't really disengage the right way, opens up that hole. So he's just another just physical specimen. He's really versatile, could play the run or the pass. I'm really excited to see him in a scheme like Green Bay's where the defensive linemen are more often just given the keys to just penetrate upfield in pass rush situations, I should say. They don't do that as much in running situations. But with the Georgia defense, a lot of the defensive linemen's job was slanting, holding double teams for the inside linebackers to blitz, that kind of thing. And so just seeing him in kind of a pure pure pass rush role will be really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost kind of like the jump Kenny took going from Petton to the current system where it was a little bit more in structure and now you get a little bit more freedom of attack. That'll be kind of fun to
Yeah.
watch him play in that.
Yeah, exactly. And the fun thing about both of them is you can move both of them around, right? One can
Right.
be a nose tackle and the other can be a three tech on one snap, and then they can switch on another snap. There's
Exactly.
just a ton of versatility with them on the field.
All right,
Uh,
Kingsley time.
yeah, yeah. So I believe his last name, I think he mentioned in the video the Packers put out, it was Enagbar, not Enagbari.
Yeah, it's going to be I've had so many names float through my head. It's going to be hard to keep these things straight, but that's my
Yeah.
understanding as well.
Yeah, so this guy, he was super fun to watch. Just a really violent pass rusher. He's got some legitimate like hand usage and really nice first step. So here he's gonna get off that ball nice and quick. This is a signature move, just an outside chop and then a club. It's just a super violent move, right? He uses
Hmm.
his hand. He's got great strength in his hands, right? Club just gets clean and consumes that quarterback. Right here, this clip is another one that's been going around social media, right? It's kind of shades of Zedarius. So he's going to be he's a stand up nose tackle. Just going to hit that center with just a violent club and swim. I mean, that gave me flashbacks to like the games Zedarius used to have against the Vikings where he'd be lining up inside and just destroying offensive
Right.
linemen. They did that fairly often, or yeah, fairly often at South Carolina. So I think it's definitely something he can do in the NFL. There were some concerns I saw from some people about his ability to set the edge. I didn't see that as much. I think he's a little bit inconsistent, right? He doesn't always get his hands in the right place, doesn't always extend fully, but he definitely has the ability to. He just needs to get more consistent, right? You see him extend, pulls that offensive lineman's right arm off, so he's kind of got that outside shoulder free. The run doesn't end up, it ends up being a throw, but it's still, he's in good position to play it if it is a run. Then right here, so this was one thing I was really looking at just in general reviewing edge prospects for the draft is how do they play pulling guards? Because that was something that a lot of the Packers edge players last year really struggled with. Obviously the
Okay.
backups, but even Preston wasn't as good at it as Rashawn is. Um, just Rashawn just has the explosive violence to really disrupt pulling guards, to spill them, get the running back to cut out sides so second level and third level defenders can come up and tackle. Some of the other edges didn't have that. So I was really happy to see, JJ in Agbar. He kind of has that ability. So right here, he's going to be playing inside out on that pulling offensive lineman, gets low, pulls him up. And so he's basically two gapping here, right? This is
Hmm.
what I believe I mentioned on Twitter when I posted this clip. Don Brown, the former defensive coordinator from Michigan, calls this denting a puller. So he's still playing inside out like you would in a normal spill, but you're two gapping so that you can try to get that tackle as well. So he just does a beautiful job of that. Manhandles the pulling offensive lineman, does a great job tackling that running back. And right here is just another example of I think his intelligence in pass rushing. right? He engages the first blocker cleanly, right? He sheds the first blocker, gets the second, just violent arm over to get free. I'll replay that full speed. So right, you attack one blocker first, then get the other one. Just splits that double team. I love to see that and his ability to handle those in passing situations. And then here's another thing I look for with edge rushers is inside counters. He had a couple, a swim move as well as this spin move, just really nice, really clean. I like seeing that ability to kind of react to how the offensive lineman is blocking you. So he gets the offensive lineman going upfield. He's faking a speed rush. The offensive lineman's kind of leaning on his back foot, and he just hits that spin and gets free. Kind of a little hold there too, though probably not long enough to get called. Yeah, I really like pretty much all the prospects that the Packers have, or that they got in the draft. At least in the first the first 5 rounds, right? The seventh round guys, they're more special teamers. They've got a couple things that are kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, I'll go over those real quick. So Tariq
Sure.
Carpenter, he's a safety linebacker hybrid. He kind of converted to linebacker in the Senior Bowl cycle that's area. So he doesn't have a lot of experience there. So you got some upside there. Um, I notice the unfortunate thing about him is he can't tackle, which is kind of important on special teams and
Yeah,
defense.
you'd think.
So I'm a little interested to see how that plays out with the Packers,
Old
but
strategy.
yeah, exactly. But he's got some good speed, good movement skills as a linebacker, right? He can beat climbing offensive linemen to the hole. He can kind of get free in the backfield. I saw that a couple times at the Senior Bowl. And he's just got some nice movement skills in coverage, as you might expect from a safety. Um, John Ford, he's massive. That's kind of his thing. Like he has a nice first step, and that's about it. I
Yeah.
didn't see an ability to really hold double teams super well. It was a little hard because Miami's defense uses a lot of slants, and so he wasn't like going one on one against the blocker. He was
Sure.
just going all over the place, and so it's kind of hard to evaluate. So I'll be keeping an eye on him, see if maybe he can do some more stuff in more of a static defensive front system.
Yeah, probably not an ideal situation for a 340-pound nose tackle to be forced to move laterally.
Exactly, exactly.
All right, so real quick, I just want to talk about your personal expectations. Obviously, we got a bunch of guys, but what they end up doing year one is kind of up for debate, especially for the Packers who like to kind of take their time moving some guys, but probably a little bit more optimism about some of these guys. So, for example, Quay Walker, um, when I think Packers defense, not that I know a ton about their scheme or anything, but I generally think about a team that uses one linebacker a ton. So, the pick could seem confusing and also his usage, but what do you see as far as maybe the movement for the Packers in 2022 with Quay Walker, and how much do you think they would utilize him?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a signal that they really want to live in nickel defense.
Yeah,
Both his pick and Devonte Wyatt's pick, right? Because if you want to live in nickel, you better have defensive linemen that can eat up blocks and keep those linebackers free. You aren't going to have the three defensive tackles like you would in a base defense to keep those linebackers clean. And so I think that with Quay, I think he's going to be on the field a lot. I think honestly, nickel is going to be their primary personnel package. Like I said, both for running situations and passing situations. I don't think they'll go to dime a lot. Like people have pointed out, they're really lacking in depth in the secondary, even though they've got studs at their
yeah.
starter positions. So I'm willing to bet that unless they bring in like a veteran, Quay is probably going to be better in coverage than any defensive back they can put on the field. So they'll probably have him and Devondre on for the majority of the time.
And then for Devonte Wyatt, kind of a similar question. Obviously, Devonte is kind of a stud, but the only question I guess I had is because they kind of like the guys that they have, and there's not terrible depth, that maybe they might bring him along a little bit slowly, but that kind of depends on how good he is, right? I mean, if he's ready to go, if he's kind of a guy that's, I guess you'd call it pro ready is the term a lot of people use, then he probably would play a lot. What would be your expectation? Do you think he is going to be a guy that's like day one, he's sort of like the number two-ish kind of guy, or do you think maybe he's going to take a little bit of time?
I think he could start as a rotational guy, and then maybe if we're assuming that maybe Jaron Reed is this is a veteran starter beside Kenny at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
I could see Wyatt coming on in the latter half of the season and taking that spot. But he's also, 24 years old. He's got experience at a high level, right, in the SEC against Alabama and guys like that. And so he could adjust to the NFL really fast, especially going into a system that's kind of similar to what Georgia was running.
Yeah, that reminds me of Kenny Clark as well. I was going to see if I could speed pull it up while you were talking, but I was a little slow. But back when Kenny started, we had a veteran that we brought in that year as well. I don't remember exactly who that was, but he ended up being the number two, kind of similar to Jaron Reed. That's kind of the same thing. As the season progressed, Kenny started taking more and more of those snaps and becoming the number two. So I don't think anybody would complain about either of those situations. But
Yeah.
I think the most interesting is Kingsley. As far as his usage, because obviously there's a massive amount of upside and excitement about his potential, but also some questions about where he's at. What do you see his role sort of as a year one pass rusher?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's not going to be a starter, right? Preston
Yeah,
and Gary are.
right.
I expect them to have those spots locked up at least for this year. So he's probably going to be right a rotational outside linebacker. He's going to be on this field when those starters go out for a little bit. I'm really interested to see what they do on third downs, right? Because they've
Yeah,
got they've got like this surplus of talented pass rushers now, right? They got Kenny, Preston, Gary. Obviously, you're probably going to want to have them on the field for most third downs, but then do you put, Kingsley on there as well? Do you
right,
wanna bring Devonte Wyatt in? Like, do you wanna have a five-man front, right? Where, like, maybe, uh, an Agbar is like a stand-up nose tackle with, Kenny and, Wyatt, three technique, and then Preston and Gary rushing from the edges. I mean, they could. They have the personnel to run five-man rushes, right? You're gonna be able to trust Jair and the rest of those guys in man coverage, kinda in one-on-ones, in those blitz situations. So I'm gonna be really interested to see how they use those guys on third down. But yeah, I think for year one, and Agbar is gonna just be, rotational outside linebacker and then a designated pass rusher.
I think that was my first thought when you showed that video clip of him over the nose. Was imagine you got Devonte Wyatt in front of him, you got Kenny in front of him, and you got Rashawn and Preston on the edges. I mean, just the possibilities, like you said, on top of the fact that we've got Quay, who's a good blitzer. You've got corners that can fire off the edge with
Yeah,
their speed. So I mean, the like you were kind of alluding to the ability of the different kinds of things, and just how complicated that must be for an offensive guy to have no idea, because
yeah,
anybody can do anything at any time. It's got to be pretty horrifying for an
yeah,
offensive coordinator or a quarterback for that matter to try to figure out who's going to try to kill you next.
yeah. And one
Um,
thing I wanted to mention real quick, I'm really interested to see how Quay adapts to the NFL. Right, linebackers don't always adapt well, they or adapt slower. But I think one of the interesting things about him, right, he's 21 years old. This was his first year as a starter, so he's still an ascending player. Right, his ceiling is super high, but he's also, like I said, coming into a very similar defense. It kind of some of the principles they use. Um, He's coming into a situation where the defensive coordinator is a linebackers coach who's
mhm.
coached up, like, several linebackers. There's the one guy with the Rams, I think he went to the Raiders, I can't remember his name.
I know exactly who you're talking about, but yep, I can't think of his name either.
Yeah, but he had, like, I think, an all-pro, Pro Bowl year with, Barry as his linebackers coach, and then obviously Devondre last year. And then speaking of Devondre, you're talking about a guy who has a very, very similar body type and very, very similar
Right.
skill set to what Quay is. So you've got a really nice support system around him. Not to mention he's coming from that pedigreed background where he's playing at Georgia against really high level competition.
Right. Finally, I just wanted to talk about what we learned, I guess is kind of a general way of phrasing it, but I guess it's more the question of expectations for the defense, not just in terms of how good they are, but sort of how you expect them to play. I guess we've kind of touched on it a little bit here and there, but just your overall, let's just say if these are your pieces, what do you want to do with them primarily?
Yeah, I wanna be aggressive. I think that what we might see in year 2 is a lot more cover 1, right? Barry, he already really liked that. That was kind of his primary third down call where most people are in man coverage, and then you've got a single high safety and then another guy, kinda down in the box as a whole player to cover up, crossing routes and that kinda thing. But with the guys you've got, outside and in the slot, I think you can run that a lot more. You may want to add more 5-man rushes with all the pass rushes you've got, all the stuff you can do with your linebackers. Just be aggressive, use creative blitzes and twists and line stunts and that sort of thing. Like I said, I think we'll be a primary nickel team. I mean, I think that both Kenny and Wyatt probably have the capability to take on double teams. And so, maybe we see occasional snaps of nickel against like 12 personnel or two or a formation with a fullback in there, right? I think this frees up the defense a lot more to basically call what they want rather than having the offense dictate to them, which is really valuable as a defense because the game is so oriented towards offenses nowadays.
Yeah, I just it's hard to wrap your head around, but it's almost exponential growth in terms of how good the defense can be when you think about the fact that you can do whatever you want. The fact that, like you said, let's be more aggressive. Well, it seems intuitive, right? Of course, you want to be more aggressive always, but you can't always do that. But when you have
Yeah,
the DBs that they have, when you have the defensive line, when you have the pass rushers, when you have the linebackers, yeah, you can have the freedom to say, yeah, we're just going to be aggressive all the time because I trust my linebackers, I trust my corners, I trust my safeties. So, I
yeah.
mean, try not to get too excited. I'm going to pretend I don't have chills right now thinking about it. But if all the pieces can come together, man, this is going to be a fun season to watch. Wide receivers or not, I don't know how those guys are going to pan out. Nothing else. We should have a very, very good defense, and I'm very
Yeah.
excited about that.
Yeah, definitely. I did see a question from Peter Thomas off of Facebook. So he says, I think the addition of Quay frees up things for Savage, and I feel that Savage will have a resurgence this year. He might have been asking too much from the free safety position. So, Peter, I agree. I think I really like Savage's skill set. I think that his struggles last year were a little bit overblown. I thought he was a really good deep safety, even if he struggled in some one-on-one situations, some catch point situations. I think that he really has a skill set to excel in what Joe Barry wants to do. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a resurgence this year.
So I'm curious about that too. You mentioned cover one. Do you envision that, or maybe you would know? Is that more of an Amos or a Savage thing? Because Amos is obviously the better
Yeah.
safety, but Savage is kind of that prototypical speed guy that you would want to be able to cover the back end of the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be both. I think that they
Okay.
wanna disguise their coverages a little bit. I noticed that kinda after the Saints game and after a bit of the Lions game early on, they started doing that more, and that's when they started to have a little more success is
Okay.
disguising their coverages. So I think they wanna do that. I don't think they wanna give away who's dropping, who's, going down into the box, that kinda thing. I think that they'll kinda keep it flexible because both of those guys have the skill set to play that middle hole position or play like the deep safety post position.
And I can't wait for football. I'm freaking out right now. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. All
I
right,
know,
Sam. Well, if
it's
you,
gonna be
you go
great.
ahead. No, if I just want to say I appreciate you coming on, man. This has been fun. We got some great pieces. A lot of people complaining about the draft. I think they're being ridiculous. We've got some really fun guys to watch play football
Yeah.
this year, and I think we got a really good team. So, Sam, I appreciate you coming on with me, and I look forward to doing this again soon.